Friendship, for example, is a real gift.
It's an insane world. In it there is one sanity, the loyalty of old friends.
You're the best friends anybody ever had.
Alone, bad, friend, good.
Bubba was my best good friend. I had to make sure that he was okay.
Friendship and family, these are the things that matter.
Can we just become best friends? Yep.
Touch my friends again and I'll blind you. Thanks, Mike. You're my best friend here.
Lose one friend, lose all friends, lose yourself.
We ride together, we die together. Bad boys for life.
That's what friends are for, right?
Friends? Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
If you're not over here in 15 minutes, you can find a new best friend. You've been saying that since the 5th grade.
Welcome to the I Am Your Friend podcast. I am your host, Aiden Licker. This podcast is sponsored by nobody still, but we're working on it. We did hit 50 monthly listeners. We got there. We got to the point we needed to. And now I am eligible to receive sponsorships. Just nothing has come in yet, but it's pending and it's supposed to be coming in soon. So thank you to everybody who has been listening and sharing the podcast, helping me out. Get somewhere, baby. Big deal. Our guest today is our friend Jay Zubricky. You may know him from working on a lot of good Buffalo musicians' recorded work, including some of my favorites, which include Every Time I Die, the Goo Goo Dolls, the Traditional, I Can See Mountains, Ya Boys in Post Prom, that's my band, Well Kept Things, the list goes, Del Paxton, the list goes on. I can name 1,000 Jay Zubricky bands because they are such good records to listen to.
Well, thanks for listening.
Of course.
That's a long list. Pretty impressed that you knew those.
Really?
A little bit, yeah. Just like off the top of your head like that.
That's true.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, I could probably keep going, but I can't think. You did All Blondes too, right? All Blondes
Go to Heaven. Yep, yeah, I did them.
Yeah.
That was right around the same era as Mountains.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean Pentamento's that era too.
Yep, Pentimento.
There's a lot.
Did you do Cedar Kites?
I did. Yeah, Cedar Kites. Yeah, I did all their stuff.
What was Rust Belt Lights? Did you do that?
No, I didn't. But those are my dudes.
Okay.
Like Pat and Tom, Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Religion and My Ex record is awesome.
Yeah, they were sick.
And now they're Tom and Bratcher are in Wild Once.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that's who that is.
So yeah, I did a few records with them, but yeah, I didn't meet Tom until I was doing, I think it was Old Ghosts is when I finally met him like officially.
Sure.
But during like Rust Belt, Pat McAndrew was kind of like my tie to that band. He's a good friend of mine, and but yeah, I remember that record Religion of My Ex, and when it came out, I was like, this is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they also did a ton of touring, and they were, kind of like the unsung heroes. Like I felt like they should have been way bigger than they got, and I liked them so much. I just wish, they would have got some more legs at one point.
Totally. I mean, that's how I feel about a lot of Buffalo bands that were like amazing, that just toured a lot, did everything right, and just never popped, unfortunately. It's the way she goes sometimes.
Yeah, it is sometimes. Yeah.
Well, Jay, thanks for coming on the pod.
Yeah.
I appreciate you doing this. Wanted to get you on for a while, and I'm glad we made it work. It's a Friday night right now as we're recording this. This is my first nighttime pod, I think.
Wow, I'm honored.
Sometimes I do a little early evenings.
Yeah.
I've done those before, but this is the first late night pod. So I'm
interested. These are like my prime hours.
I know that.
I just got out of my session. I had here. Yeah.
Right. I had to work the nocturnal shift.
Yes.
For the
I appreciate that.
Hey, no problem. Anything to get you on here. Jay and I have been friends for a few years now. I do have his face tattooed on my forearm, which is always a fun conversation starter.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only one that I know of, so thank you for doing that. And I definitely show that picture to people sometimes.
Nice.
It's pretty random, but I do appreciate it. It's in with my buddies on your arm too.
Right, yeah. So I have a bunch of Buffalo bands tattooed on my forearm. All of which who have recorded with Jay at some point. So I decided to throw Jay's logo in there. And it's funny, some people will, like in Buffalo, people will people are like, is that Jay Zubricky? You know what I mean? Or like, it'll be a fun thing that someone's like, oh, this dude knows Jay. Actually, he's got him tattooed on his arm. But then other times, when people don't know you, they're just like, oh, that's an interesting tattoo. Yeah. What's that? And I was like, that's my buddy Jay. And I just leave it at that.
Well, yeah,
and they're just like, is he Is he sick? Is he dead?
Yeah, right?
No, he's totally fine.
Some sort of tribute.
Yeah.
And in not a good way, but this one is the way I prefer.
Right, totally.
So, yeah.
Hell yeah, man. We're doing it. So, I mean, let's go through some Zubricky recording, because I think it's interesting. I mean, at least from my perspective, because I always, like, when I was a kid, I always, like, my dream was to have, like, my own, like, home recording studio. I wanted to figure out how to record stuff. I was so interested in it, and I had no idea for so long. I remember just looking up, like, equipment, and I remember writing it down in a notebook of, like, how much things cost, of like, what's the cheapest home studio that I could figure out, you know? So what, like, how did you decide that? Like, what was it, and how old were you when you were like, I want to try recording music?
When I was like teenager, maybe like 15 to like 18, I was playing a lot in my band, and at one point, I don't know when it was, I was maybe like 16 or 17. It was like a musician's friend, like, deal of the month or something.
Classic.
And it was like a Fostex digital recorder. And I remember, like, saying to my parents, I was like, hey, like, can we get this? Like, the band stuff is up in the basement, and, like, I think it'd be cool just to kind of, like, try to record myself just for, like, ideas or whatever. So I ended up getting this Fostex digital, like, 8-track recorder, which was insanely difficult to use.
Yeah.
It was so hard, and I was just like, this is why it was, like, on a clearance sale. But that was, like, my first exposure to, like, trying to, like, capture something that I was doing.
Right.
That wasn't, like, on a cassette player that, like, went on the floor. And, you know, I remember the one I had, I think, came from, like, my dad's company's, like, conference room or something. And I just put the cassette deck on the floor, and we'd record band practice. But, like, this was an actual, like, multi-track recorder.
Right.
So that was, like, my first exposure to, like, trying to, like, track a song or an idea. And, you know, it sucked. And it was like borrowed microphones. Like, who do I know who had, like, a Radio Shack microphone? I'd borrow them. And, you know, eBay was, like, another, like, avenue then. And it's just, how cheap could I get stuff to capture sound?
Right.
And,
I
like,
went through the same thing.
It's funny, I was at my parents' house not long ago, and it's like the cables that I was using, they looked like Twizzlers, like this hard plastic shiny thing.
Yeah,
and
like, probably from Radio Shack.
Yes.
Radio Shack brand.
Yeah, they probably were. And but that was, like, my first exposure to, like, the concept of multi-track anything, and being able to, like, maybe try to edit a little bit. And again, this was all, like, time code. There was no, like, actual computer screen.
Yeah.
So it was a little different than what I eventually got into with Pro Tools, but it was, like, again, just a spark to the idea of, like, oh, this is kind of fun. And that there was never, like, a career in mind at that point.
Right.
It was just like, oh, I could record band practice now, and I could put, like, a couple mics on the drums.
Yeah.
And, like,
that's all I
on
wanted
each
to do too. I just wanted to figure out a way to just, like, I had song ideas that I wrote, and I wanted to just lay them down as ideas, you know? And I remember going on eBay and just typing in the word recorder.
Yeah.
Like, just like audio recorder. Because I'm like, what? I had no idea. You know what I mean? And I found some, like, CD recorder device that was for, like, CD duplication.
Oh, okay.
And I bought it, not knowing what it was. And I was like, I was like 13 or something. I had some, like, leftover communion money probably, and bought it on eBay, and I got it, and I was like, I'm reading through the manual, and I was like, I don't know what I bought.
Where do I plug in a microphone?
Yeah, so that thing, it was just a waste of money. I just never did anything. But then my guitar teacher was my cousin, and he was the one who told me, he's like, you got to get this Tascam. It was like a 4-track recorder, digital recorder. It had a little, like, green screen on it, and there was a little, like, dial that you can, like, and it was pretty difficult to use, but I remember using that, and I would just record, like, acoustic tracks on that. That was my first intro to recording.
Yeah, I think learning that way, or at least I feel like if you can get through that and still be interested, it's a good sign.
Totally. I recorded a bunch of things on that.
Yeah, because that stuff's not, like, fun. You know, like, not that Pro Tools or, like, is fun, but, like, you're looking at waveforms, you're looking at different tracks. On those, you're looking at time code.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, well, if I can get through this and, like, complete some songs, and I'm still, like, really into this concept of recording, that's like a really good sign for the path that you might be going
For sure.
down.
The most annoying thing about it was that there was no way to like extract anything.
Right.
So it's like there was just an internal hard drive that held everything, and you could buy this CD burner that was
from that.
Right, but it was like made specifically for that.
Yeah.
And by the time I had gotten this thing, like it was discontinued.
Yeah.
And it was impossible to find. And I remember looking, like trying to find a USB converter adapter for it so I could put it into a computer, and it was like a proprietary thing from Tascam. So there was just like I literally had all these recordings on it and couldn't do anything with them except plug headphones in and listen to them on that device.
Yeah,
so
man.
it was a little frustrating, but
you just walk around with that device at all times, and that's how you listen to your demos and play them for your friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I remember I went to Borders one time,
Okay.
the bookstore, and I found a book that was sound recording for dummies.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember buying that and reading it cover to cover. And that's when I was like, oh, audio interface. That was like the first time I saw that.
Yeah.
And then that's when I bought like a PreSonus, like one channel thing. And then that's when.
It's enough to get you started, though,
A
man.
condenser mic, because that's how I learned what a condenser mic was. And then, put a blanket up in my bedroom, put the microphone in front of it, and learned about acoustics and that kind of shit.
Those early concepts from those books actually go a long way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like people make some serious recordings, like just doing basic things like hanging some blankets in their closet.
For
like,
real,
the closet over there, just treat it that way, and you got a vocal booth and maybe a guitar cab isolation, whatever you want to do. But like, those concepts go a long way. I don't know which one I had, but I had a book like that, thinking like, oh, once I read this, I'm set to go. It's just like, wait a second, I'm even more confused now.
Right.
But yeah, it's like I said, if you can kind of get through that stuff and still be like really hungry to like learn more, I think it becomes a lot more fun. Like kind of once you get like the initial, like how does this work out of the way, even if your recording sound like crap, I mean, at least you're recording and making something you feel proud of it, or just you feel like you accomplished the next step. Yeah,
totally. I also remember using because the video game Rock Band was popular when I was like maybe like 13, 14, which is when I was in my first band, which was Single File Riot. Shout out Frisky Misky.
Frisky Misky, yep.
So, and Rock Band came with a USB microphone. And I had my dad's work laptop, and I installed Audacity on it. And just used this. So we would have band practice, and like in the basement, and just like on the other side of the basement, I would put this USB microphone and just set it on like a desk down there and plug it into my dad's work laptop and Audacity and just hit record and record our band practice. It sounded like shit, but it was like, we have something, you know what I mean, like to get ideas down, and that's all we wanted to do. And now we have iPhones.
The modern day of people throwing their phones on the floor at practice
and hitting voice memo.
The voice memo thing, and
that changed everything.
I still get like a lot of demo ideas from bands that way, and it's just like
that's how I do everything.
It sounds better than it ever did, but like it's funny to see how we start and where we end up with that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Super interesting. So so then you go to, I assume after you start fucking around with a few different things, then you go to Timon, right?
I was going to high school at Bishop Timon.
Right, where they had a recording studio in the school, right?
My junior year, they opened up something called the Center for the Media and Arts. And what they were doing was trying to just kind of bring in some arts to a school, which was, pretty much all sports up until that point. I know you have some family that went there as well, but... they had some sort of grant and it had to be used for the arts. So they put in like a photography studio, like a new art classroom, new music classrooms, digital media center. And part of this was like a 3-room recording studio. And they were teaching Pro Tools, and they had, like a Mackie digital board, and they had, a couple pieces of outboard gear. And, but it was like my first experience, like in something that was pretty much like a real recording studio.
Right.
And it was just in time because like your senior year is when you were taking those classes as electives. So I was able to sit in and do like, I think just audio 1 and audio 2, but this is a microphone. This is how it works. This is Pro Tools. Here's some basics. And I just got super, super into it. And the teacher there, Paul Fitzgibbons, was so cool to me. And, he just kind of gave me free reign of this like studio. And eventually, like, I think it's like right after I graduated, they gave me keys to the school. and I was able to go there and just use the studio pretty much whenever I wanted.
Yeah.
But
it's nuts.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like it really was. Because it wasn't like, oh, here's the keys to a studio. It's like, no, here's the keys to a high school.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
you could have wrecked some havoc. If
right.
you wanted
Right.
To. Yeah.
But it was something that gave me a chance to like just get into a facility that had this equipment,
right,
and kind of just take that next step and explore what's possible. Because I didn't know how to record. I didn't know anything. But I had access to this stuff, and it gave me the chance to learn and
figure it out.
Eventually, bring in bands.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the way it started. Was just like my senior year of high school, and like I said, they were just them being cool to me gave me the chance to like just go make a ton of mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a ton
for sure.
But yeah, that's how it started.
That's wild. And then, so that's when, like, so then you're in the school, you have access to the school, and then you start having bands come in and record with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was probably like, probably like 2003, maybe like summer of 2003. But yeah, I was having like just friends bands come in, and it was just, hey,
let's figure this out together.
I can record you, but let's figure it out and see if we can get something that is even usable at all. And like luckily at that time, everybody's kind of in the same boat. Like nobody's band was like great, but some of them were pretty good, and everybody was like, oh yeah, sure, like either free or super cheap recording, let's go do it. But it gave me the chance just to kind of go through and see what happens when you turn up a preamp too loud, or like don't have Pro Tools settings done the right way, or where to place the drum mics, things like that. And that was like the very beginning of it there. And I think like Misconstruity or like Crosstown Rivals might have been like one of the first couple bands I recorded there.
Well, what's funny is that I found out, after knowing you for a while, I found out that there was a local record that I loved when I was like 11, 12 years old by the band Jettison.
Yeah, they were the Crosstown Rivals before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And they became Jettison.
I recorded that at Timon.
You recorded that CD at Timon, which is nuts because like, in like 2006 when I heard it, I was 11.
Sure.
And, my older brother Danny was friends with Corey, right? What was his name?
Corey the singer,
yeah. So Danny showed me it, and it was like very much, that early 2000s like emo kind of sound. And I fell in love with it, and then years later I meet you, and somehow the conversation comes up. I'm like, wait a minute, you recorded that CD? Like that CD was so important to me as a kid,
Yeah, that was at Bishop Timon St. Jude High School, man. And it's funny because the drummer from that band is now working for Avril Lavigne. I just hung out with him a couple days ago. He's drum teching.
Whoa.
Yeah, Dave Dombrowski.
Yeah.
Shout out Dave.
I remember Dave. Dave was they would hang out here and like swim in the pool and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a that was like a CD that was one of the last things I did at Timon.
Oh, okay.
Cuz then I started working at Audio Magic like shortly after that.
Right.
So that might have even been like recorded in 2005 and then like came out in 2006 or something, but like that was one of the last things I probably did at Timon.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
So Audio Magic's not around anymore, right?
So it's now called Black Rock EPS Studios.
Okay. Is it in Black Rock?
Yeah, so it's on Military.
Nice.
Right near Showplace. Showplace is at Grant and Military. It's right around the corner.
Gotcha.
It's behind the Sportsman's Tavern.
Right.
So,
a lot of good things going on over there.
Yeah, that block is actually pretty awesome.
Popping up.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome over there. But that was, at the time, it was called Audio Magic.
Yeah.
And that was like the first like real studio that I worked at. That wasn't, at Timon.
And were you like an intern, or you got hired as an engineer right away?
So I got brought in as like an assistant engineer.
Yeah.
And I would have like intern responsibilities and stuff too.
Right.
A lot of cleaning and a lot of just helping like set up and strike sessions and just kind of being there to assist. Until I was comfortable enough, or they thought I was comfortable enough to like have somebody in the room and me running the session. And but it was like it was a huge step for me because I didn't really have much exposure. Like ironically, my band had recorded there, like right when I first started taking like recording stuff at Timon.
Mm-hmm.
But I had never been privy to like being a fly on the wall in an actual recording session until I got there. And the first couple that I did was literally just that, just kind of sit in the corner until somebody needs you. And then if nobody needs you, then you're just kind of there until you have to strike the session and help clean up at the end of the night. But I did that for a while. And then I did a lot of learning at that point too. Was Audio Magic kind of like, were they in I know because GCR probably was, it was called something else at that time, right? So at this point in time, that was probably still Trackmaster. Right, Trackmaster. So was Audio Magic in the same tier? Were legit bands coming through to record at Audio Magic? Yeah, definitely. The chief engineer at Audio Magic is Mike Rorick. Okay. And he's a professor at Fredonia, and he's just a phenomenal engineer and just a phenomenal person. And that guy was literally as busy as I had ever seen. Yeah, I was supposed to take a class with him at Fredonia, actually, and ended up getting switched to a different professor because he couldn't do it for some reason. Yeah, he's great, and that was oh wow, this is when I saw him working, it's this is what it takes to be an engineer. Yeah, because he was working, probably 6 days a week. Long days, and I was just assisting on some of his sessions, and he was working with legit musicians and real bands, and it was interesting for me to see at that time because I didn't know does an engineer just go in and work a 9 to 5 or right? And watching him work is okay, wait, this guy is committing his life to this. Yeah. So so I learned an awful lot from him. I'm sure. Yeah. But yeah, it was legit over there. That's sick. That's dope. So then you become your own engineer. And I know we're just telling your life story here, but I think it's fascinating because it's for, I don't know, most of us, especially in today's world, I think most of us, just because of I don't know, the financial burden that a lot of us carry, we just end up kind of working these normal everyday jobs. So to know somebody that actually does something that's so out of the realm of the norm, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think it's super interesting to find out because it's I think about that all the time with people who get into these kind of jobs. It's just how did you get there? I think it's fascinating. Yeah, and it's a different path for most people, right? So at this point, when you're working at Audio Magic, is this when you're finally oh, okay, this could be my career? Not even at that point. That's the thing. This is just it's a gig. Yeah, I was working 4 days a week at Premier Wine and Spirits. I was a stock boy. Yeah. There I was doing that. That was basically how I was at the Five Corners. That one? No, the one next to Regal on Mile Strip. Oh, okay, yeah. Is there one? Am I thinking of a different one? I think it's a different place. But, okay. Yeah, so I was working at Premier as a stock boy, and I was just, if I wasn't there, I was basically at the studio, just trying to help out or doing whatever I could. Because at one point they gave me a key, and they're just hey, as long as you're helping out around here and not messing up, you can come here when there's downtime and just kind of go through stuff. And so I was a stock boy at a liquor store 4 days a week, and then I was still in college, and it wasn't really anything that I thought to be a potential career, just kind of something that I just enjoyed doing. Sure. And, yeah. Every now and again you get a really cool project and you have those thoughts, but it wasn't serious. I kind of just thought it was just something I was going to have in the background as a hobby. Yeah. And then after a few years, things started getting a little bit busier, and got some really cool projects, a couple of my first record label projects, and that stuff's pretty inspiring because it makes it feel a little bit more oh, I got to that next level. And right. Yeah. I remember getting alternative press. And seeing an album I record, there's a big ad for it. It's wow, this is real, That's crazy. But do you remember what album that was? Yeah, By Autumn's End. Okay. It was maybe 06 or 07, maybe 07. But that was the name of the band, By Autumn's End. I remember that name. Yeah. Were they a Buffalo band? Yep. Okay. Yeah, they're a Buffalo band, and that was you have those thoughts, but at the end of the day, it was always just kind of okay, well, what's the safe thing to do? It's get my degree. I was going to school for business administration or something. Hey. And right. Shout out business administration degrees. Yeah. We got them. The safety net degree, right? Of course. I wish mine didn't cost as much as it did. Right. So that's what I was doing though. That was kind of the plan. Yeah. It was just to kind of finish up school and the recording stuff. Where were you going to school? I was going to Madai. Okay. But oh yeah, I did. The recording stuff was just kind of there, and towards the end of college and stuff, recording was not going well for me. I was not getting much work. It was pretty like, you know, the writing was on the wall. Like, hey man, you had some fun doing this, but this clearly isn't a job that you could live off of.
Sure.
And I was pretty much like content with like being done, and just kind of maybe having something that, you know, I had some cool stories and like I made some friends and like all that stuff was great. But when it came time to like, you know, was it like 6 months after you graduate, the student loan payments start coming? That stuff was going through my mind.
Right.
And I was just kind of like, okay, well, I know how to do this stuff, and if I want to do it on the side, that's cool. But like, finish up school and find something real.
That was I was in the same boat when I was 22 and I finished Fredonia. I literally like I graduated. I went on tour with Kill the Clock.
Mm-hmm.
They did like a DIY tour that I hopped on for a little bit, and then I came home and was like, "Fuck, I got to find a job." And I was hoping that I could try to figure out some way to like. So I like worked. The Cobblestone Fest happened the first one that year, and I had an in to work that. And I worked that as a volunteer, just hoping that it would create more opportunities. And then there is where I met Gucci Greg. Shout out Gucci Greg. And that's why he got me a gig at the Ballroom. But it was like, $12 an hour working a couple hours a week. Like, it wasn't much. And I was like, and then, that 6 months point hit. And it's like, fuck, I need a real job.
Yeah, when it creeps up, it hits you hard.
Yeah, I was hoping within 6 months I would figure out a sustainable job within the music industry.
Well, dude, and that's exactly how I felt too. And it was scary because, at that point you're taking a pretty big step into like what your actual life might look like, and as much as I loved recording and music and stuff, I was trying to be like a realist about it.
Yeah.
And so like I said, things weren't busy or anything, so I was just kind of okay. And at this point in time, the guys from GCR, which at the time was called Inner Machine Studios, the manager had reached out to me. It was probably like summer of 2008. And he said, hey, we just did this huge renovation. And, we liked a couple records that you did last year. Like, would you want to come see our studio? And I said no.
Whoa!
Yeah, I was
Jay-Z dropping the big balls on.
Well, because at the time, I wish it wasn't like that, but
I don't need you, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Well, I said no because I was loyal to Audio Magic, and it's kind of like, well, don't need to ruffle any feathers right now because I'm probably not going to be doing this a year from now. And the guy's name was Mike, and Mike was just like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, man, thanks though. Take care." And later on in 2008 is probably like right around the holidays, he hit me up again. He's like, hey man, I know you said no last time, but like the Goo Goo Dolls are off for the holidays and the studio's like wide open. I gotta ask you, do you want to come see the place while there's nobody here? And I was like, yeah, like sure, because I'm probably not gonna have this chance because I'm gonna kind of probably finish doing this stuff. And so I went down and we hung out for like a day, and he just offered me the chance to come in and start doing sessions there. And so probably like January of 2009 I started going there to like assist and like learn the rooms, and I did my first session there. I think it was March of 2009, and I've been there since. Dude,
that's so funny that it was like they reached out to you. It was like to me, I'm thinking of like in my shoes where I'm like, I'm looking for every opportunity I have at all times to like not have to work a 9 to 5,
right?
And it's like, so the fact that they reached out to you and you're like, eh.
Well, to tell you the truth, like it felt so unattainable to me, like, cause the studio was on like the cover of Mix magazine that year. And, I felt like I couldn't like step up to their level.
Okay.
Because it was like a 2-part thing. Like one, I was like, okay, recording's not going well for me right now, and they clearly don't know that.
Yeah.
And the other part of it was like, I literally don't know how to work in a studio like that.
Right,
so what's going to happen if I go there?
Yeah.
But again,
so
like
a little bit of imposter syndrome hits you. It's like they think I'm better than I actually am, and like I'm not actually cut out for this, like that. Well, kind of shit.
It was that for sure, and just like literally the only time I had seen 95% of the gear in that building was in videos or magazines.
Yeah.
Like, so I was just like, geez, well, when I go meet with them, I better like either be super honest or like try to act like I know what I'm talking about. But there was just so much stuff I just couldn't. I just say, I've never worked on gear like this or in a room like this.
Right.
Because Audio Magic was cool, but it just didn't have what, GCR has. And, So I did a couple months of like hanging out and assisting before I did my first session.
Right, getting
but
to know the
that was the start of it over there.
That's nuts, man. It is intimidating. That like upstairs studio, I remember the first time going in there when we came in to do the first post-prom EP, and I remember like seeing just like all the filled racks of everything, and I was like, dude, I don't know what any of that shit does. You know what I mean? Like,
that's literally what I said when I first went there. Yeah, I was like, okay, well, I know that's a compressor, but I've never plugged into one of those.
It was wild, man. It was wild to see you just like, wheel around the room and like be twisted knobs. It seemed like something that like it seemed like I was in like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory of like pulling just weird whistles and fucking.
There's a little bit of that, yeah.
Yeah, there's Oompa Loompas in the back running around and actually tangling all the wires and shit.
Yeah, no, that's I had similar thoughts like my first time going there, and like 'cause I think the first time I went there was actually during one of Mike's sessions, and like watching him do the same thing, like wheeling around and patching in over here, over there, and I'm like, okay, that sounds good, but I literally don't know what unit he just patched into. I've never touched one of those, and like, so there was a ton of learning that had to be done just to be able to hang.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the beginning of 2009 is when I made that change.
And you've been there ever since.
I've been there ever since. Yep. Yeah.
When did it change to GC? So at this point, it was
still Inner Machine,
but it was owned by the Goo Goo Dolls.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Inner Machine until September of 2009.
Right.
And that's when Robbie took it over solely from the band.
So, right. And you are, as we have both discussed, and we both are huge Goo Goo Dolls fans.
Yeah, man.
So what was that like coming into like, a band that you looked up to, like their studio and working for them?
It was interesting, especially like my first concert ever was Goo Goo Dolls, Bush, and No Doubt.
Dude, that is a fucking, that's such a sick lineup.
And
I was just talking to Patrick Galante was here the other day, and I was talking to him, and he said, he was just on tour with Ice Nine Kills and said that they met Bush at some festival that they played in Europe, and he said they were like the coolest guys ever.
Wow, okay. Yeah, that was my first concert.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so like, just to kind of be like, oh, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm going to the Goo Goo Dolls studio.
Yeah.
To like meet with everybody to see if I should work there and stuff. Like that was like a big thing. And I remember like the first time I met Robbie, I don't know if it was the first time, but one of the first times I met Robbie, and we were just hanging out, man. And I just, I literally left that meeting being like, this guy's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's super cool. He's a West Seneca dude. And, we kind of had a lot of, similar interests. And, he was just as nice as could be and as welcoming as could be. And it made me feel like I belonged without really proving much at this point in time, like to them.
Yeah.
He just kind of like, yeah, man, just, make the most of this opportunity. And, but yeah, so it was definitely cool because, growing up in Buffalo, it was like every radio station plays Goo Goo Dolls.
Of course,
and that's how it's been forever.
Right,
and,
they are like our one claim to fame.
Right,
you know what I mean?
so
of, like people who made it out of here.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really, an opportunity that I had so much appreciation for, and I, the gravity of it hit me pretty hard at that point. How it's like, this is real. Like, they just made their new album here, and they're allowing me to work here, and so it's just like motivation, just to try to like want to be part of that world because it was the closest I'd ever been at that point.
Damn. That's so sick. I remember I met Robbie for the first time when I was 13 because I was in the middle school rock band at West Seneca West Middle. And my and we were sponsored by Music is Art. Like Music is Art help us, like they put us on a bunch of gigs and stuff because it was like teenagers just playing in a cover band and shit. So it was cool. And he came to our school to talk about they had who was that, Agent Me? You remember that band?
Oh yeah.
So definitely. Agent Me came and played at our and they just, to me, I was always like, this band is just plain white tees. They're the same. It's this, even the singer even looked like them. It was crazy. But I liked them. But they came to talk about, there was some like foundation or something that they were like talking about when they came to school, but because I was in the rock band, like we got to like meet Robbie and like hang out with him for a little bit, and it was like, and I was the biggest Goo Goo Dolls fan. Like I was obsessed. So like I was like so nervous to meet him, and it's crazy now because it's like, I've been recording at GCR, we've done 3 projects there now. Yeah. And I've been there, to help out with other people who have done other things there. So like he's always there. And now it's just like, hey Robbie, what's going on, man? It's like super casual, but it's just, it's nuts. But he is the fucking coolest dude. Yeah. And so down to earth and like,
yeah, he made that transition like coming over to GCR like very easy and very welcoming and friendly, and yeah, man, just a lot of appreciation for him and what he's helped me do.
For sure. Yeah, shout out Robbie. Shout out Music is Art too.
Yeah.
Very, very cool thing. That's dope, man. So what was like the first like big project you got to work on? Or what you felt was like, oh shit, this is a big deal?
Jeez. So coincidentally, there was like a project that Keith Buckley and I were working on at Audio Magic, and it's the band The Damn Things. Yeah, and we started working on like early demos, like in 07, 08 maybe.
Yeah. How long have you've known the ETID guys for forever?
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're from West Seneca. They're a little bit older than you, I think.
Yeah, I think Steve and I go back to literally the 90s, and then
that's nuts.
Jordan, Keith, and Andy, and Rat Boy was the first drummer, but we go back to probably like 2000, 2001. But Keith and I were working on early Damn Things demos before the band even had a name, and then I got kind of iced for a while because like Every Time I Die was so busy, and I think it was before Fall Out Boy went on hiatus, I forget, but like the first one at GCR for me that was kind of like, okay, this is like a big deal, was right the first week of January 2010. Joe Troman and then Rob Caggiano, who was playing guitar in The Damn Things, and he's also at the time he was in Anthrax, they came to Buffalo with me and Keith, and we spent a week in the studio. Like they were writing vocals and like that we were demoing songs for the first Damn Things record.
Yeah, that's sick.
And
so you got members of Fall Out Boy, Anthrax, and Every Time I Die.
Right. So for me, that was like the first one at GCR that was like, whoa, this is like huge.
Yeah.
I that year I had some really cool bands come through, right? But like this was like, okay, these guys are like literally on the radio.
Yeah.
So that was like the first one. That was at the very beginning of 2010. And dude, at the same time that jam band Mo was recording upstairs, they were doing like an EP. Yeah. And like Robbie's hanging out. It was just, for me, it was just kind of like, oh, this is cool. Like, so this is what happens here is like, these bands and rock stars kind of like get together in places like this. Okay, this is cool. I can do this. But yeah, that's probably like the first one that was like, at least, to me, like a really big deal.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I feel like I had the same feeling when we were doing Who You Pretend to Be. And, it was during COVID, so we couldn't all be there, but it was me and Charlie that were there. And the Goo Goo Dolls were demoing upstairs, and like Benny the Butcher was coming in like the same week. And it's like, dude, we're sharing the studio with like the biggest like up and coming rapper in the world right now, and just like absolute pop rock legends upstairs.
That happens there,
dude. It was
that's
nuts.
What's interesting,
and that's when like imposter syndrome really kicks in. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe we got it. We snuck in here,
Well, dude, I'll tell you what. That's what's cool about that place is like you just never know. Like, we're super super lucky to have the staff and crew that we have working there, and everybody's hustling, and you never know who's going to be in that week or who's going to be in overnight sometimes, or like who's upstairs and who's downstairs. It's really fun, man. And sometimes I look at the calendar, I'm like, wait, that's going on at the same time. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So
it is cool. It's cool now. A recent addition is, you got the pictures up on the walls. Yeah. Of like bands that have, and artists that have recorded there. And it's cool to like walk around the studio and just see like all these huge names. Like, you were in there with Taking Back Sunday and the Menzingers. Obviously, West Side Gun, Benny the Butcher, Comet the Machine record there.
Yeah.
There's obviously the Goo Goo Dolls, James Taylor, who you worked with him.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely crazy to think all that has happened like in Buffalo, and like it's funny just to think about like where the studio it is. Like at any point, people just driving by, going about their day, have no idea they're within like this radius of like, you know, some fucking crazy recording artist is in there right now. You know?
It's funny because like, you know, you want people to know about us, but at the same time, it's just I like kind of not just being like a thing that people just walk into.
Right,
you know
totally.
what I mean?
Yeah, it's like you're kind of tucked back. You're attached to a dentist office, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's funny because I have a friend who lives in those apartments across the street.
Yeah.
And the one day he like texted me and he just said, "Hey man, there's a friggin' tour bus blocking North Street. What's going on over there?" I go, "Oh, Korn's here."
I was just going to bring up the Korn
He's
story.
like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "The Korn?" I say, "Yeah, Korn's here right now." And he's just like, "Okay, I guess I can't be too mad at that tour bus." Then.
Right, yeah.
You know, because that's where they pull up. You know, they pull up right at those stairs.
Right.
And it sucks for the traffic, you know,
For sure.
because it's such a narrow street anyways. But, yeah, it's funny. Over the years, he's actually texted me a bunch. He'd be like, "Okay, who's there today? There's a bandwagon blocking the street now," or whatever. So, yeah, it's fun.
That's awesome, man. It's got to be, I mean, do you like, I got to imagine like hearing anybody complain about their job. It's just like, you got to just feel a little good, you know, of being like, man, I'm glad I fell into something that, I mean, I'm sure a lot of times not to say that you're not working hard, you know, but, you know, they say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life or whatever. But I don't know. Do you ever feel that way? Do you feel like it's almost like surreal that you fell into this, or?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I know it's not a normal life.
Yeah.
I know that. I'm very aware of that. And I also know it's like, you know, depending on how you play your cards, it could be a here today, gone tomorrow kind of a thing too. So I'm definitely super aware of that and really appreciative for these opportunities. You know, not a day goes by where I don't feel lucky. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you're just kind of like, not that you want it to end, but you're like waiting for the bubble to burst. You know what I mean?
Right,
It's just
right,
kinda
right,
like, right. So yeah, I definitely don't take it for granted whatsoever.
Fun to be over. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's really important. You know, it's just kind of you know, stay like grounded with it because, like I said, it's a really competitive field. It really is, man. Especially like with modern technology, the way it is.
Right, people are building home studios left
that are
and right.
badass. Yeah, man. And so I definitely, you know, I do take stock in that from time to time. Just kind of thinking like, wow, like, you know, made a couple records last month, and I can't believe I got to like pay my bills off, off of making music.
Right.
And like, there's that side of it too. So like, I'm still like a fan of music. I'm a fan of, you know, different producers and engineers and stuff. And, you know, I find inspiration in that, and I definitely feel lucky that I'm able to do, this to really any extent. And, again, I know having it be like my full-time career is not totally like a normal job,
right,
but I gladly trade these weird hours that I work. I'd rather do that than, you know, something that I absolutely hate waking up and going to do every day. And
stocking liquor at Premier Wine and Spirits.
Yes. Yeah, man. The guy who doesn't drink, you know, putting those bottles on the shelf.
Yeah. Well, can we get into that a little bit if you don't mind?
Sure, if you want to, yeah.
Yeah. So did you just never drink? Like not, is there any time like...
Yeah, I drank like, you know, like high school experimenting.
Sure.
But it was like sophomore year of high school where I was like, yeah, this just isn't for me.
Really?
Like
just
I was
right
young.
away.
Like I was young, dude. I was probably like 15 or something. Like however old you are the sophomore year of high school.
Yeah, that's
I was
how old
just
you are,
like, like this does not make sense to me. And like I liked, you know, hanging out with friends and like the parties and stuff. But like literally,
because that's the thing, dude, is like you don't drink but you fucking hang,
right?
And you hang late. You know, like that's what I love is like if we're hanging like at my house, you know what I mean, and we're like
I'm the last one
we're
to
throwing
leave,
it back,
man.
you show up, but like, and we'll be like pissed drunk and you're just like still chilling, like completely sober.
No, I you know, a lot of years like hanging out on Allen have really brought up my tolerance for
dude,
assholes.
the fact that you even hung out, like you were a regular at the Pink that was drinking what, Dr. Pepper or some shit, like
typically it was club soda with a splash of cran.
There you go.
But yeah, man,
That's
I don't know,
nuts.
to me it was just like I don't know, I knew at that point I could still be like, I could still have my friends, I could still be in like, you know, have social interactions with huge groups of people. And at first, my friends were more like, wait, what are you doing not drinking?
Right.
They were more like bugged out by it than I was ever like
well, of
weirded
course,
out
yeah.
by it. I just kind of like, I literally just don't like it.
Yeah.
And so, so I just, like sophomore year of high school, I was like, man, I'm good. I'll still hang, but I'm not going to drink.
Right. And never like, did you ever smoke cigarettes? Never.
Yeah. So like, it probably was like freshman year ski club, like freshman year of high school. Dude, and it's funny because...
Freshman year ski club.
Yeah. So you're like, I don't know, how old were you older? 14, 15. And I remember being like in ski club, and the big thing was like people taking the chairlift, at Holiday Valley, and going up the hill, and like, people pull out a cigarette and like smoke, and whether they liked it or not, that's what they were doing.
Right.
And I remember like, oh yeah, I got this like pack of Marb Lights.
Yeah.
And
that's what I used to smoke, Marb Lights.
And by the way, when I say like I have this pack of Marb Lights, I think it was the pack of Marb Lights that I ever owned, like the only one. And I remember like, the cherry of the cigarette like fell inside of my jacket, my ski jacket, and burned through the fabric. And I had to like lie to my mom. And I don't even remember what the lie was. Yeah. But she's like, hey, why is there a hole like on the inside of your jacket? I was just like, I don't know. I think I got hooked on something in the van.
There you go.
Whatever.
It's good.
But it was very clearly burned. But yeah, I was never like a smoker, you know. Again, it's just those first couple years of high school, just like experimenting with that stuff, and
and
kind of just deciding like, I literally don't like any of this.
Dude, yeah, that's wild to me that you were like at that age to just be so confident and just like not just be like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, man. It's just one of those things that just like didn't appeal to me and didn't like make sense as far as like I was watching how my friends were,
right.
And we were a bunch of idiots anyways. Right. And so I just like, I can still be an idiot.
Yeah.
And just
it's so, that idea is just so foreign to me, I think, because it was like, I don't know, like being like the second youngest and and like a big family where everybody drinks, and just like, I struggled so much to fit in that it was just like, I wanted to do anything to fit in. You know what I mean? So it was like, oh, they're going to drink. Okay, I'll drink. They're going to smoke. Okay, I'll smoke. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I was fully like, if the conversation came up of like, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? I'd be like, without a fucking doubt. Yeah. If that means they're going to invite me to hang out tomorrow, I'm in. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, see, I think the thing that helped with that with me was like music was the common bond.
Right.
For us, like, whether it was going to shows, like my older brother is like 2.5 years older than me.
Yeah.
So I always had like, when he got his license or like his after 9 license or whatever, it was kind of like free reign. Like
the after 9 license.
Yeah, it was just kind of like we could go to shows whenever, and even before that, our parents were dropping us off and stuff. And I just had like other things to like fill my time, and playing in bands and like,
So you and all your brothers were like all into music and going to shows and shit like that.
Yeah,
that was the thing you guys did together?
My older brother, he kind of got out of it quickly.
Sure,
but he was going to shows and stuff for, up until he was probably around like 20 or so, 21, and Brian, my younger brother, who Tough is
shout out Tough.
He started going to shows, dude, like no shit, when he was like 9.
Yeah.
Like I remember, like my dad took us to Water Street to see Less Than Jake, All, Braid, and Snuff, and Tough Guy was like 9 years old.
Damn.
And it was funny because like at that point it's like, well, he went to one. If he wants to go to another one, he could just go with your mom and dad or like me and Eric or like. So he started going like really young, but that was one of the things that kind of like, I don't know, I was just doing other things. I just didn't feel like I needed to like drink or anything.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's awesome, man. That's cool that like you and all your brothers bonded over that too, because that was another thing. Like again, second youngest of, there were 6 of us, and we were all kind of into different shit. Like everybody was kind of like we were close, but we never did anything together, right. Like there was nothing, everybody was kind of on their own, doing their own thing. So, that's cool though, that you guys did that. And then, but like, so when you guys were going to show, it was always like punk music and like,
punk, hardcore, emo.
Yeah. And that was all came from Eric, your older brother.
Well, like the punk and hardcore and emo and stuff, like the emo side, like my best friend Dave, his brother Mark was a few years older than us, and he was the first one to give me like a Sunny Day Real Estate cassette,
There you
or
go.
Get Up Kids cassette.
Yeah.
And him and my brother Eric were pretty close in age.
Right.
And it was just kind of like the four of us were
Nice.
like kind of coming into it together, but like Mark was like leading the way with like the emo, and Eric was kind of leading the way with like he likes like actual like metal.
Right.
Like I remember being like a little kid and listening to like Death Leprosy, like that album. We listened to that all the time. And like Obituary and stuff like that. But that was like from my brother Eric. And then I was also like heavily into like BMX at the time.
Okay.
And I had a few friends that I used to ride with who were like, hey, check out this band called Turmoil, or like check out there's a Buffalo band called Snapcase.
Yeah.
So yeah, those were kind of like my sources for that stuff. And I just got so into it that once like, you know, mom and dad were like, hey, like, yeah, you can go to this show as long as your older brother goes with you.
Right.
Or if you have like a group of friends or whatever, I was like, yep, that's where I'm going to be.
Yeah,
So-
that's awesome. See, like me and Liam were into the same music. That's how I got like most of my music taste of like pop punk and stuff was Liam's best friend was this kid, Tim, whose older brother Jeff was the vocalist in this band Guns of Camden. Do you remember that band?
Yeah, Mike was in that band.
Yes, he was. Yeah. So this dude Jeff was the lead vocalist, and Jeff's little brother Tim was Liam's best friend. And Tim was like big into like punk and hardcore and emo and all that stuff. So he showed Liam, who then I learned everything from that. But Liam was definitely not about bringing me around anywhere. You know what I mean? I was like, can I come? And he was always like, no, fuck you.
I was lucky with Eric like that. He was super cool. And he
Right.
was also cool like being the driver.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, dude, I remember there were times, and I'm not here like trying to just completely shit talk Liam here. I love Liam, but he was a dick in high school, Liam, you were. And he would, dude, I remember like I would go to a party and be fucked up and like have no way of getting home. And I would call him and he would answer and he'd be like sleeping. Like I woke him up out of sleep. I'm like, dude, I need you to come pick me up. He's like, nope, see ya, bye. And that was it. And so I was like, fuck. So.
See, I was always that brother who was the DD.
Right.
That was kind of the hat that I wore because of not drinking. And even when I wasn't really old enough to drive, I was driving people's cars home from parties and stuff. So
see, that was like, I had my time where I stopped drinking for 8 months, and I probably would have went longer if the pandemic didn't hit and I just got bored is really what happened.
Right.
But I have a much better relationship with alcohol now than I did before. But
that's good.
When I did stop drinking, that was the one thing I did like about it, was that I liked just being the D. Like I was kind of doing the Jay Zubricky, and maybe that's where I got the idea from, but I was still fully going out and hanging.
Yeah.
Like I would go to the Pink till 4 a.m. and just like not drink at all,
It's totally
and then
possible.
Right. But the sick part was driving down there. Like I drove down there, I drove all my friends, and then I drove all my friends home. So it was cool to be like, oh, I know all my friends got home safe.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't spend any money. And I still got to go out and like be social and have a good time. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, getting everybody home safe is always
feels good.
A pretty good feeling.
Yeah, it's so, especially like someone like me who has so much anxiety. It's like so nice to just like get home and be like, all right, everybody's good.
Yeah,
yeah,
it feels good, man. You go to sleep a little easier that night.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Going back to recording for a little bit here, do you have like? Is there one project or one band that you worked with that is just like, without a doubt, ultimate favorite experience?
It's hard because, like, as you know, like you've been in sessions where it's your band. You've also been in my sessions where it's like your friends' bands. Mm-hmm. Like, I really do try to have unique experiences with everybody.
Yeah.
So, like, even if it's like a record where we're not like joking around as much, I still might be having like the time of my life
just because you're working on something.
Yeah. And then there's other times
like
where
I have to imagine, working on like the ETID records,
right,
that had to be amazing.
Oh, of course, and for a lot of reasons. But then there's other projects where it's just like keeping it light and fun.
Yeah,
is like it's a ridiculously good time to go. You're making an awesome record. You're hanging out with people who are your friends. You're just laughing, having a great time. You're still getting work done. You get your breakfast sandwiches from Elwood Market. Like, you got the whole routine going, and that stuff feels good. It's hard to pinpoint one, but there's definitely some projects where, like, I've come out of them being like, wow, I'm really glad I made friends with these people.
Yeah.
And I think you and I were chatting earlier about like coffee stuff.
Yeah.
And like literally tying
we didn't
this
even get into coffee yet.
Yeah, tying this stuff in together is like when I was working with Del Paxton. I remember day one of doing their album. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go throw in a pot of coffee.
Yeah.
And it was the first time ever anybody's like, oh, what are you making? I was like, I don't know, let's go take a look.
Coffee,
and it was like, you know, Maxwell House or whatever. And Zach's like, hold on, don't even make that. It's like, why? He's like, I'll be back in 20 minutes. Okay. And he like ran to his apartment, came back with a bag of beans. He's like, if we're drinking coffee, it's gonna be good coffee. So we ground it up. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I don't know what it was at the time.
Yeah.
But those guys were like, listen, dude, while we're here this week, let's just drink good coffee and we'll give you some different kinds to try. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. Like, this is my first time drinking coffee without cream and sugar. And so like that record sticks in my head for a bunch of reasons, but like a big one was like the start of my passion for coffee.
Totally, dude.
So like that's definitely like, you know, if I hear a song from that record, or I went to go see them play a couple weeks ago, I literally still think about like, wow, without doing that record, I might not have gotten into one of my favorite hobbies.
Dude, and they are, they are the coffee band of all coffee bands. But what's sick then is, you know, because then you got Charlie onto it, and then Charlie got me onto it. And I remember the first time Charlie made me a cup of coffee, and like my world was changed. Right. Dude, like the way I looked at, because I remember I always hated coffee. Like in high school, like I worked a job, you know, I worked at the Poppy Seed restaurant, shout out to Poppy Seed. And like everybody there would drink coffee, like when we were working like an early Saturday morning shift, and like I would try to, and I'm like, dude, this is disgusting. Like, and I'm like, maybe I'm mixing it wrong or whatever. And I remember, and people were like, it's because you're young. Like once you get to college, that's when you'll like coffee. So then I get to college, and we have like a Starbucks on campus and a Tim Hortons on campus, and I'm like, I'm again trying all these different 2 cream, 1 sugar, 1 cream, 2 sugar, double, like trying everything. And I'm like, dude, it's disgusting. Like I just can't do it. And then I get through college and I meet Charlie, and Charlie and I become friends. And he's like, you ever just drink it black? And I was like, no, because like in my head, the idea of black coffee was like, that's for psychopaths. Right. Like, no way, dude. Right. And then he's like, try it. And I remember trying a black iced coffee from Tim Hortons, which today, if I drink a black iced coffee from Tim Hortons, I would probably spit it out. But at this point, I drank it. I was like, oh, wait, no, we're onto something here. Like, this is way better. Like, just coffee. Right. And then, you know, Charlie's like, all right, now let's have real coffee. Right. And then, you know, that's when, and then it's a gift and a curse, because it's like, yes, I get to have this, but it's like, now I only want this coffee. This is the only way I'm going to drink coffee. Yeah. Luckily, I do love Starbucks iced coffee, like their cold brew, they're just black iced coffee is good. So I don't have to like go completely nuts, but for the most part, man, I love just making fucking good coffee, man. There's
it's better. Great. I mean, it's something that you know, for me personally, it gave me like a different outlet, just something else just to get interested in. Yeah, and focus I love that shit. And
I look at it the same way I look at like vinyl records. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I've always been listening to music on an iPod or stuff like that. Right. But it's like, but once you get into like vinyl and like good speakers and having a good setup, it's like, ooh,
full experience,
the man. Finer. That's how you get into the finer things club.
Well, yes, and then and dude, so like after the Del Paxton record, I was like, okay, like, getting good beans, that's a good step right there, and the next record I was doing was a Water Me Down record. Nice. And Ben Lieber was playing drums on it. And Ben, at the time, he might have been working at Tipico at the time. And he was same thing. He's like, mind if I bring my own beans? I'm like, sure, I learned about this last month. Come on in. You know, and so it was like, okay, like I don't think there's any turning back now. And then after that was when we did Every Time I Die's Low Teens. And Daniel Davison, the drummer on that record, brought a Chemex. It was my first experience with pour over. I'm like, okay, what are you doing here, man? He's like, I'm heating the water to 205 degrees. And right. I was like, what? Wait. And I remember kind of like, we gave him a little bit of a hard time the first couple of days, and then you drink it, you're like, whoa, what is this? And that was my first experience doing it. And by the time we were finished that record, like I was, you know, making the pour overs with them.
Right, dude. And that's the thing is like, you know, I work from home most days. I make pour over every day. Yeah. But because that's how it was introduced to me, I never even thought about drinking like how you do it in the studio, like how we just are a regular coffee maker. Right. And just putting grounds in there, like maybe because I don't have a regular coffee maker, but it's like I never, like I always am thinking like, oh, if I have good coffee, I have to do pour over. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I had just actually set up a pour over rig at the studio this week. So yeah. We are set to go with.
We're gonna have to book some with
Chemex, yeah. But yeah, that was like the start of it. Right, it was like 2016 for me. That was,
and I met you a year later, I think. So that's great, dude. It is like, I mean, going back to the conversation of like, this is your job is crazy, because it's like, for us, when we book a session with you to come in, it's like, oh, I'm taking PTO. Like, I'm taking vacation time and work, because I'm going to hang out in the studio.
Right.
And like, yes, we're gonna grind and we're gonna work hard and everything, but like, it's such a fucking fun experience. And it's like, you know, it's almost like take your kid to work day. Like, we're going to hang out with Jay at his job today, you know?
And that's the thing, though, dude, is like, it's important to me, too, that people are actually having fun, because I totally get it that people are sacrificing, like you said, PTO, sick days. People are literally just taking lost days at work. So like,
I'm lucky to have PTO.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right. And that's the thing. Like, the last thing I want is people to come in and we're doing whatever, a song or whatever, and they're like having a horrible time, and it's like, wait, I took off of work for this.
Right,
and like,
right.
You know, they're doing other things just to make it happen. So I definitely respect that. And like, if that means that, you know, you got to read the room, but like, if it means a little bit more joking around to like lighten the mood, or like, you know, less joking around, but a very specific kind of humor, like, again, you try to give everybody the experience that they deserve, and what's kind of unique to them. And obviously with like you and you know, post prom and everybody, it's like, you know, I feel like there's jokes that we have that only exist in that room that people outside the room wouldn't even think are funny. It's
so funny.
But like
when we were at Charlie's last weekend, dude, and like the jokes start to come out.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because it just divides the room. Like,
yeah, it's just it was just like
it's only us. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, here's what we're joking about in the studio. Everybody's like, okay.
Right. And then everybody else is just like staring at us
like why is that funny?
Yeah.
You know? For us, you know, but that's the thing though, dude. And like when we're in there and you know, the days get long.
That's what I'm saying. We're in there for 10 hours.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and we're just all in one room and like only getting up to go to the bathroom. We break once to get food.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's just like, you know, I mean, it's the same thing with touring when you're just like in a van for hours at a time with the same people. Like, you kind of go a little nuts and these weird jokes start to come out that just cause you to start crying, laughing.
But that's the thing, though. If I go back and listen to a record, I could think about some of that stuff.
Yeah, it's the best.
Like when I listen to Post Prom's album, it's just kind of like I think about some of the jokes, but I also think about like that was a pandemic project.
Right.
And there was insane rules that we had to abide by because it was so early in the pandemic that it's just like, you know, didn't want to get in trouble, didn't want to get people sick, you know, didn't want anything bad to happen. And then, you know, if I think about like the EP, it's a different story.
Right.
I think just about the humor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Aside from the music, but like, yeah, that's the thing. Like, that's the kind of stuff that sticks with me though. Is like, I could think of different jokes from different bands just by like something coming up on like, you know, Spotify or Apple Music, whatever it is, you know? Yeah,
I do definitely have distinct memories of each session that we did with you, like each project that we worked on. The album definitely being, I mean, again, because it was during the pandemic and we had very strict rules we had to follow. We couldn't all be there, so it was weird. And I remember just like, you know, there was just so much added stress because of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, this was our first full length, so we were there a lot of days in a row, a lot of long days. Like, I remember, I think we did 6 10-hour days in a row at one point.
I think
that was like pretty much
yeah.
all guitars. And it was just like, you know, playing the same parts over and over, doing different guitars, switching amps out, you know what I mean? And it got, you know, to a point where I like, you know, started to feel like Jack in The Shining, you know, where it was just like all work, no play makes Jack. And I'm just like, you know, I remember going home some nights and be like, fuck, dude, like, but it's all so goddamn worth it.
Oh, for sure. And that's why the humor, like in the room when you're doing stuff like that, that stuff is really, it's more important than I think we realize sometimes because,
of course, dude,
you know, if you're working on like a song and you're playing guitar for 4 hours, like something's got to keep it light, right?
Totally.
You know, so
it is, dude, for real too, because there's sometimes where like I'm playing a part or something and I'm fucking it up every time, right? Like, especially like if it's like a hard palm mute part or something that you got to get like a very specific timing on, and it's very monotonous, and we're on like 12 takes, you know, and then I'm getting fucking angry or something, and then you just crack some like so stupid joke, like dick joke or something and then it's like, and I can't help but be like, motherfucker, dude. And like, then I'm not mad anymore. Yeah,
once you laugh and you realize that, hey, it's not worth being stressed right now, or bad stress, rather.
Right.
it seems to help keep people on a better path.
Totally. And there's nothing better than just like, I love like, you know, the 11 a.m. start time. I get up, I ease into my morning. We go and stop at, you know, Elmwood Market, get a breakfast sandwich, or we go to Bread Hive. Yeah. Somebody stops to get food and like, you know, we get some Arizona iced teas. We get the coffee going.
I love it. I was just trying to explain to somebody recently how 11 a.m. is like 9 a.m. or even like 8:30 for me.
Yeah.
Like 11 a.m. is kind of like my early to start time.
Right.
Like maybe like 2 or 3 times a year.
Well,
I'll have like a 10 a.m. start.
We say start time, but it's 11 a.m. arrival time.
Yeah,
we start around 1.
And I remember on the album, we were hanging out in the parking lot, finishing our coffees till like 11:30.
That was the best, though.
And like we went in when we felt ready to go in.
Well, it was also the best because we had to wear a mask the entire time we were in the studio. So going outside, it was nice to take our masks off for a little bit.
Yeah.
Just sip on a coffee, you know, and we were recording in like the summer, so the weather was nice.
Yeah, we're sitting on the hill eating lunch.
Yeah, it was the best, dude. Yeah. I look back on the record so far. I'm so happy we have like so many pictures and videos and shit of all that stuff, because it's just like, it's just it's such a good experience, and I love that record so much for a bunch of different reasons. But the session, I mean, recording it, you know, it couldn't have been anywhere else with anybody else.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. I definitely, you know, anytime I get to work with a group of friends like that, it's, you know, for me, like, I mean, you know how much I'm there. You guys experienced it.
Right.
Like that's also like my social time.
Yeah.
You know, so I enjoy those.
Yeah. I don't know if there's much else that we can talk about. I'm trying to think. We covered all the recording. We covered not drinking. We covered coffee. I feel like that's a good chunk of it. But so, Jay, thanks for coming on, man.
Of course, thanks for having me.
I'll talk to you soon. You could follow Jay on social media. I think he's just Jay Zubricky on everything, right?
Yeah, just at Jay Zubricky.
Yeah, I'll throw it in the description of the episode. Check him out for the projects that he's working on. It's so cool to see when he's working on some of these projects, and you know, and then you get to listen to him a few months later. So it's always exciting. So, Jay, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thanks for having me.